we have no play, we have no role to play in the theater of our life, then pain will be what we experiencing without the pleasure because the growth is not happening. So take the pain as an indicator of you need to change things. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Soulful Intuitive. Today's topic is soul plan, but before we get into it, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done it already. And now it's time to get into our topic. I bought this book a few years ago. It's called The Soul's Plan by Rob Schwartz, and I was listening to a podcast that he was having today with someone else about this topic, and it reminded me of that book. And it is aligned with what we have been talking in the past couple of weeks about the karmic report that we talked about, and then the book of destiny, and now this is the soul plan. So Rob has been able to document series of channelers and their journey with their client and also on their own soul, and they have documented many stories about how people remember their own soul planning and destiny planning process before they were born. So they believe that we plan our lifetimes with the help of ascended masters and guides and other people, and we plan who we are going to be family members with. We plan our physical appearance, if we're going to have any disabilities, if we're going to be born with sickness, or we're going to be born into affluence, and the races that we can pick. And basically nothing is left by chance, and we plan it because we want to experience a certain life in which we learn certain things, and also we bring our incomplete karma. Let's say the example he uses is, let's say you were sick and somebody like a loved one or a family member was taking care of you, and then after you both pass away, if you feel like that karma is incomplete, then you plan another lifetime where then they're sick and you're the caregiver. It's a very simple example. And then also people, or the interviewer asked him, like, what about people who go really bad? You know, let's say everybody uses Hitler, but we've had like many evil characters who killed and pillaged and just brought horror to humanity. And he said, well, you know, someone like Hitler was gifted to actually be a spiritual leader. That's why he was gifted with charisma, and he was a very good speaker, and he was actually very talented. And he said something that I didn't know about Hitler, who apparently Hitler was a very gifted painter. But because of his traumatic childhood, he went the wrong way because we do have free will. So that was his opinion about, or his research about Hitler and the channelers that channeled into Hitler and into his energy. But nonetheless, what's important is, and what, regardless of what avenue you want to follow in an attempt to get to the reason why we're here, is it's very common for all of these stories to have pain as teacher in whether you want to believe in it or not. When we don't have pain, we will not go inwards, and we will not try, and we will not attempt to try something or to change ourselves. So let's say when you go to the gym, it's impossible to build muscle if you don't feel sore the next day. So you have to push yourself hard and into the discomfort in order to expand your muscles, because you got to break those muscle tissues, and then after they're torn, you feel the pain. But then that actually causes the tissue to get stronger and bigger. So take that analogy and apply it to our soul expansion. So we keep talking about evil characters, but if we lived on a planet where there was no pain, then that planet would be heaven. And heaven, whether we want to believe in its place as the actual geography of heaven, whether it exists or not, is a place that is been promised to us where everyone's perfect, that you're conditional love and you never age, everything's beautiful and green and there is abundance and it's great. However, in order to be in heaven, we also need to be heavenly, which means that we need to come full circle and be godlike, if you like to use that word. And I think this process of life and rebirth is about coming to a place like Earth, and this dimension where there's duality, and experience dark and light, and get to the point of realizing that is because wherever there's dark and light, also there is pain and pleasure. And if we want to think about our own lives, if we go through life without any challenges, we don't really attempt to do some heavy work. We don't attempt to dig deep. We don't attempt to break the patterns. We don't attempt to change things up, because why do you want to change anything if everything's perfect? Nobody does that. So then we plan a lifetime where, let's say, you're born into a difficult family, and then on top of that, that family lives in a difficult society, and on top of that, that society is having so many upheavals and located in a part of this planet that, let's say, is also having weather issues. So now you combine all of these hardships and it will make you work a lot harder. It will make you question why. And when bad things happen to us, that's what we ask. We always ask why. Some people ask why me and not why others. And that's a little short-sighted, because usually when people ask why me and they think that others are coasting, it only is because they just don't know what's happening in other people's lives, because we are not inside of anyone's soul. We're not inside of anyone's head, and we are usually not privy to people's intimate details. So the conclusions that we have about who they are and like how easy their life is and that we got it worse is only because we don't have enough knowledge. So for example, if you go to the hospital and someone's in coma, does that mean that their body's working perfectly just because they seem like they're sleeping soundly? No. So that's the analysis that most people have about others when bad things or difficult things knock on their door. But the sure thing that we covered in this lifetime is change, pain, and uncertainty. And the pain is a catalyst for change. And the change will cause, if you actually hear the calling, then you will make changes, and you will have to try to make changes. The changes just don't happen. And then that will cause expansion and will make your soul up higher vibration with a bigger backpack, with more stories to tell. So for example, let's say we all have people in our lives that are constantly complaining. They're complaining about only bad things happening to them. They're complaining about the family members that are taking care of them. They're complaining about how they got it bad and how they have pain and how they've been wronged, and bottom line, they're telling you about their victim mentality. And these people, if you actually channel, or if you read their destiny, or if they order their karmic report, they planned a lifetime in order to have hardship happening to them until they get to a point where they stop looking outside and feeling helpless, where they no longer have the victim mentality, and they start looking inwards and change their beliefs. And as soon as they change their beliefs, just like magic, miracles happen. And that miracle is all of that difficulty that they felt that was only happening to them, all that pain that they thought that was only directed to them, all that feeling of getting stuck that they complained about and they blamed everyone else in their lives but themselves, will go away, because they planned a lifetime in order to feel this feeling, to suffer. And if they listen to that pain, and if they don't look at this life as a punishment, and if they don't look at others who are seemingly causing them pain as horrible people and as just evil characters, and look inside to see what role they have been playing in order to keep repeating that mentality of pain, if they do that, then they're going to have an aha moment at some point. They're going to change their lifestyle. They're going to change the way they look at the world. And then that pain will cause the biggest growth for this lifetime that they planned. But usually people don't understand that life doesn't happen just haphazardly. They are making life happen as it's happening to them. It's not happening because life is random, because they're unlucky. None of these make any sense, because if you look at this world that is so clever and is so genius and is so complex, then you see that when you look at the nature, do we ever skip spring? Let's say if you live in part of the world where we have 4 seasons, spring comes around the clock. It never skips. Some springs are wetter than others, but the order of things is always the same. So that applies to us too. We live in this world, on this planet, in this realm, that everything is orderly. So pain is here in order to cause growth. And then that growth will make us experience joy and pleasure. But if we don't take pain as a teacher that it is, and just not internalize it as we're victims, we just have bad luck, we have no play, we have no role to play in the theater of our life, then pain will be what we're experiencing without the pleasure, because the growth is not happening. So take the pain as an indicator of you need to change things, and always go inward. Don't blame other people. Don't blame the outside world. Blame yourself. The word blame is actually a wrong term, but usually people who don't want to take agency in their lives are blaming other people. But if they take an inventory of what has happened to them in the past 10 years, 20 years, depending on how old you are, and you see the same situation, the same feelings that keep happening to them, let's say feeling of pain, feeling of being out of control, or having the feeling of being a victim, or having the feeling of being unlucky, or having the feeling of being stuck, or having the feeling of poor me. If that is the title of every story, regardless of the characters and actors in their life, then they have to look inside, because there's something inside of them that they have to change. And inward and self-work is the hardest thing. That's why we plan lifetimes around it. So the soul journey and the soul planning is done by ourselves, by our higher self. And then we know when we are connected, we're in the state of unity, not in this realm, but after our death or before our birth. Then we know exactly what level of pain we need to create in order for us to stop blaming the outside and start looking inside. And by looking inside, then we can evaluate and see what is it that we have to change, what is it that we have to learn, what beliefs we have to let go of, and what beliefs we have to take on in order to bring that gift of life lessons that we planned prior to birth and add it to our reservoir of knowledge and wisdom that will be with us for lifetimes, because our souls are eternal. This lifetime, for everyone who is watching, is a blip, is not even anything significant. So the little pain in this lifetime that will bring us the growth for eternity is completely worth it. So stop blaming the outside world. Look into your karma. Get familiar with the karmic report. Get familiar with channelers, with astrologers, with books that talk about the planning of life. Watch videos on near-death experience. Go to psychics who are not charlatans, the real ones, the mediums, the psychics. Get familiar with the world outside of this realm, the non-physical world. And when you believe, when you discover or rediscover your belief in that world, in that real world, because this world is not real, the real world where we're in the state of union, then you no longer feel helpless. You no longer feel hatred for anyone that would bring you pain. And then you're going to pull up your sleeves and you're going to start doing the dirty work, which is working on yourself. And when you change yourself and when you do what you need to do, you will go through the experience of pain, followed by change, followed by expansion, and you will land in pain, for pleasure and joy and satisfaction. So for those of you who are hearing these concepts for the first time, I would recommend that book because it's a tremendous book. And it also helps people who are very judgmental not to judge an addict, a homeless person who is suffering from addiction, and the ones that you consider degenerate, people who are rich, people who are poor, people who are attractive, people who are less attractive, and so on and so forth, because those are not luck. Those are by divine planning that we did before we were born. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.